There is, on the Day of Judgment, as the ulama said, another layer of exposure, which is the agendas and the hidden motives. And those things will come out of the earth as well. So you have face value, and then you have what drove people to these crimes, and what drove people to lose themselves. And this becomes the personal mirror. Now, we can talk about these global shifts, and we can talk about global greed, but all of these are built upon personal manifestations of greed and personal manifestations of evil and personal manifestations of narcissism, and people that lost themselves and then took an entire community, sometimes a whole country, sometimes the whole world with them on that journey of self-destruction and caused the world to destruct as well. There's a personal mirror. Was the argument worth what it cost you? The argument between family, the argument between friends. I really want to stake my ground in this. I want to win this argument so bad that I'm not going to give in. Because if I give in, then I'm going to lose. What are you going to lose? Was it really worth it? You know, subhanAllah, on the Day of Judgment, when the Prophet ﷺ says that when the last stage of entrance into paradise are two brothers and a qantara, they just didn't want to forgive each other. They didn't wrong necessarily each other, but they didn't want to forgive each other. Hard feelings. How does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do away with those hard feelings? Allah Azza wa Jalla says to the person, look at that palace in paradise. You want it? Let it go with your brother. Okay. Do I have to see the house in paradise to know that it exists? And know that لِمَنْ تَرَكَ الْمِرَاءَ وَإِنْ كَانَ مُحِقًّا, like to leave off an argument even when you're right, is actually always worth it, because I already believe that the reward is worth losing the argument, but you really wanted to win that argument. Okay, you really wanted to get that business deal over. You had to cheat a little bit more, right? There's this whole global scandal right now, or whatever, sports scandal, of millionaires that were gambling to make more money. You were already a millionaire. Why are you cheating people out? Why are you putting yourself through more of this so that you can get an extra dollar? That's worldly consequence, but was that extra dollar of riba, that extra dollar, that extra thing that I cheated with really worth the loss of barakah in my life, the complete loss of blessing in my life, and then meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having to be punished for it? Was that ego worth your marriage? Was that ego worth your parents? Was that ego worth your brother, your sister? Was it worth it to stake your ground in that? And you keep going on and on and on and discussing the opportunity costs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to you every single day. Sometimes it's time. Was that extra time at work worth extra time away from family if I had a choice? Right? What was the trade-off in all of this? And imagining yourself to be this person who comes up and who stands in front of it all, once the earth spits it all out, vomits it all out, and says, yeah, I don't think it was worth it. The permanence of it, the permanence of the consequences, the way that it will testify, the people I lost, the limbs I lost, the money I lost, the emotions I lost, it really wasn't worth it. None of it was worth it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want for you to fall into the place of regret. In fact, before you get to the regret, Allah Azza wa Jalla gives you the instructions of how to curb greed, curb the desire to betray, curb the desire to win an argument, curb your ego, curb it all, so that you don't find yourself standing in one of those situations saying, this wasn't worth it. This wasn't worth it. Cut off the disease before it leads to the consequence. Cut off the individual consequences before it leads to global consequences. And take heed from what you're seeing in the world around you, and realize that if the only difference between you and global criminals and global schemes of exploitation is that they're able to do it, they're capable of doing it, and you're not, then you're no different in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than that person. Because if you could, you would. So just like A person looking at Gaza right now and saying, if I could save everybody there, I would, Allah Azza wa Jalla will write down that intention. Likewise, a person of greed who looks at it, and may Allah foil all of their plans. May Allah replace their waterfront properties with permanent chambers in hell. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala foil it all. But if I could, I would. That looks like a scheme I can get in on. Just because you fail doesn't mean Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't write it down against you. Analyze yourself. Relationships with parents, relationships with spouses, relationships with kids, relationships with friends and brothers and sisters. Was it worth it at the end of the day?